back to another video. In this particular video, I'm going to be discussing or creating an analysis regarding cellular resonance. Now, cellular resonance is essentially the statement that in terms of our cells as living beings, each and every single cell has a resonance. It is constantly vibrating. And through this vibration, you then see what emits as essentially communication. From one cell's resonance to another cell's resonance, we can actively see how these resonances or electromagnetic impulses, known as resonance, alter each other's reality. From one cell's resonance, we might see another cell's resonance might not necessarily bind to said resonance. So even from a cellular perspective, down to the very atoms that which make up a cell, you can actively see that each particular atom in itself within a cell has resonance to said atom. Now, what does this essentially create? Well, just as a human experience, atoms resulting in clumps of atoms known as cells, clumps of cells known as a life form, on and on and on, you might see that this resonance is what allows from the infinitely large to the infinitely small to essentially say, I like this, I don't like that, I'm going to bind to this, I don't want to bind to that. And in that particular notion, in the law of resonance, the cellular resonance, you can actively see that even your cells themselves have likes and dislikes. And they are very much conscious, just not to the same level, or are they as level in consciousness as you are? Well, that depends. What are you made of? You're made of cells, right? Which these cells themselves are made of atoms. What do you think is the consciousness that binds these atoms together to take form in a human body? Or another life form? Or a sun? A planet? And the division goes from infinitely small to infinitely big. You can essentially take this replicative pattern of cellular resonance and apply it to absolutely all things in the universe. Now, what might resonance cause at the cellular level? Let's test a form of resonance, shall we? Now, what do you think happens if I resonate this guitar string? It creates sound. What might be your mind, if not the cellular resonance generating said sound within your mind? Your ability to internally think. A resonance of sorts, which said resonance itself, just as the cellular resonance, in itself, you are made of cellular resonance, which means if you are made of said thing, you yourself are that thing, resulting in your resonance as a being. You might start feeling trembling in your chest right now because I'm placing a resonance towards you that is altering your own internal resonance. An act of cellular resonance, if you wish. But through the electromagnetic field generated by this said cellular resonance, we then see the rise of the torus energy field. Not Taurus as in Taurus, the astrological sign, but Taurus as in Taurus, which stems from the energetic magnetic field that all life forms essentially result in being generated from. From the infinitely small to the infinitely large no matter the rate at which the division or replication of this pattern within said universe replicates itself, you can actively see that no matter how big or how small, the same process, the same electromagnetic field is present, which in itself, each of your cells, you could say you are a universe of your own at this particular point. In ancient philosophy, we believed as humans, we were the center of the universe. In your own experience of the universe, as the universe, as a living creation of said universe, which this replicative pattern is all correlated to the same thing, as a linear replication of this divisionary replication, are you separate from said universe? If your answer is yes, then I would argue you have a higher complex, thinking you are above the rest of the universe and not part of it. Now, if you said no, that you are part of the universe, well then allow the ears of the student to understand the teachings of the master. In terms of your thought process, the moment you essentially awaken to your mind, you begin a resonance, a psychosis. Which from the psychosis, the resonance of said cellular level, which makes your entire selves, then makes you as a self, a cell yourself within another larger body, known as a planet part of another larger body, solar system part of another larger body, galaxy. But the infinite pattern division of this replicative pattern stems from where consciousness sits in said cell. If there's no consciousness within said cell, there is no consciousness or awareness within said self and cell. Now, in terms of understanding the mind, in the theory of the mind, it is stated that one might infer or specifically be able to tell or read or know a person's internal state based on inferring that information. You are gathering that information without ever having to essentially physically ask the question. Just based on hearing this cellular resonance, which we now consider schizophrenia as a mental illness, but it is simply an awakening to said cellular resonance, where you as a human cell are essentially resonating with other human cells. And this resonance is what essentially creates this pattern of echolocation, which is a function found predominantly in marine life. But if life on Earth, on the land crust itself, before anything lived on land, on Earth, everything came from the sea. Because from the sea, from the oceans, you find the fundamental building blocks for life. Oxygen, which in oxygen, hydrogen, and many other compounds mixed together over time with the heat of the sun and this major concoction, as if I'm stirring this earth around the sun, and the heat essentially creates a chemical reaction, resulting in evolution, stimulating development of alternate lives. Different beings within one particular center able to hold life present within itself. And in this particular planet, in itself is something known as, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it is called the Schwartz resonance. Which from the Schwartz resonance, you find that the Earth has itself a resonance to it. Don't quote me on the name, I might be misnaming it, but the Earth, if you were to Google, what is the Earth's resonance frequency called? And you would find that it has a hertz, a measure of measuring sound. How would you measure sound if it is not there? Well, from the Earth's resonance, we can actively hear the sound. And you can actively bind to that sound by binding your resonance to said planetary level. But now if the Earth itself can resonate, and everything else in the world and universe can resonate, in our complex understanding of human existence, we somehow, as science, claim there's no such thing as a human resonance. That's an oddly bold claim, because science essentially is claiming everything in the universe is real, except the mind. Whoa, 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 whoa. You're telling me there's one thing or one particular experience of the universe experiencing itself. You're telling me that in the experience of the universe in the experience of the universe experiencing itself, you're essentially telling me that some things in the universe are real and some things are not. But in the law of constants, you could say, if one thing is real in the universe, all things in the universal experience are real. But if one experience of the universe is not real, then I would argue nothing is from this perspective, because you can't have it both ways. The universe either exists or it does not, but you cannot claim, based on the law of physics and the laws of psychology, physics, chemistry, biology, on and on and on. How do we understand all of these concepts? Through resonance, which your brain actively stores said resonance in what is known as, drumroll please, your neural pathways. In your neural pathways, you actively store said resonance to a particular nerve cell. And in order to do so, you need to release neurotransmitters, which themselves create binding processes, allowing electricity, known as consciousness, electromagnetic energy, holding molecules of reality together, resulting in physical reality that is perceivable to the five senses. Matter itself is a lower state of resonant energy. It takes on a condensed physical form. But if in the idea that our bodies are specifically holding said consciousness, is it the brain that generates consciousness, or is it consciousness generating the brain, generating said being? Let's put that to the test, shall we? With a simple metaphor. Do you see this light right here? This particular light. Now, if I do this, I turn the light off. But if I flip the switch back on, the light bulb goes back illuminated. What would you say causes the bulb or the light to come on? Is it the switch Or is it the bulb? In that case, I would argue both are wrong. It is simply the current of electricity, also known as energy, which allows said electricity to take form in physical space, creating a visible point in physical space. Now, if I shut this light off all of a sudden, it's not the light bulb that's generating the said consciousness, and it's not the switch generating said consciousness. Which, if the brain is the light bulb, what might be causing said light bulb or brain to shine with consciousness? And that is the moment you begin to understand the concept of atomic mass, the storing of consciousness or energy at the cellular level. Excuse me. Now, at the cellular level, you might find that consciousness specifically binds to a physical body. It is a ethereal electrical body of sorts, simply materializing in molecules found present within a lower resonance state of energy known as matter. You are constantly formulating yourself as you move through space and time. It's not that space is empty. Space is full of energy. You are a soul, an electrical body. Fair warning, the next words I will say might cause you to vomit. But in this particular sentence, you could actively say that this soul, this electrical body, is constantly formulating its form through air molecules, which in itself, with your electrical body, form your physical flesh. But now in the understanding of the flesh, we must understand the Word. For the Word became flesh. From the mind became reality, flesh. Which in this notion, you would understand now why Jesus would specifically say, "My kingdom is not of this world." In the understanding of science, the more you understand science, you actually begin to understand religion even more. Because in the fundamental teachings of science, you begin a religious experience. The moment you understand this particular concept, you'd have just awakened to your cellular and self-resonance. Now, how might this echolocation or resonance work? In a previous video, I stated that just as whales, which humans themselves are evolutions of sea life that stemmed actually from a whale-like creature, and from all life forms of the ocean, we then came to the land crust. But in our adaptation of being a sea dweller first, you would find that the echolocation is still present, the resonance. And how this functions is essentially like this. In the jaw muscle, you would find that in the generating of energy from speaking or chewing or repeatedly opening and closing your jaw from this lower hinge, you're actively generating static energy by performing movement. Now, this static energy essentially builds into your resonance. From this particular point, we then arrive at the event, which is this portion of your head right here, which if you click your jaw or specifically clench right now, and just hold that clench, don't clack your teeth, but ease into the clenching. Now, close your jaw and tighten your jaw, clench it. Do you feel you just released an electromagnetic pulse in your brain? You felt a pulse release, you could literally hear it. That is known as echolocation. And in this process of electronic magnetic energy being released, we then see how your thoughts are then externally projected. And if you are an awakened individual through your cellular resonance, you begin to perceive the resonance of other cellular resonances, whether they are awake to it or not. The question now remains is, as a resonant awakened self, how do you react to your cellular resonance? Because in the instability of being able to handle said resonance, we teach people this is a delusion, something not real, which if one thing in the universe is not real, nothing is. Thank you.